Hello, dear friends. We welcome you once again to our podcast studio. Today we have as our guest once again someone you all know well, Victor. We have cordially invited him here today so he could answer the urgent and critical questions that arise as the company continues to grow and develop and as the technology evolves. And today, I think we will be able to provide comprehensive answers to all of these important questions. Hello, Victor.
Hello, Alexander. Thank you for inviting me to your studio. As always, we will carefully review the most pertinent and relevant questions. Yes, and I suppose we can begin our discussion.
All right, then let's proceed directly forward to the first question, which is extremely urgent and pressing. Any project, any technological or scientific research, or any major scientific advancement always undergoes some changes during its development. And as I understand it, the development of the entire project has also reached a stage that requires significant and necessary modifications, as well as certain adjustments to be made. So could you please tell us about the changes in the structure of the project? What are the primary objectives of the modifications being implemented? And what are the underlying reasons?
Yes, Alexander, thank you for the question. I would even say that these are not structural changes within the project. It is actually more likely not even. Well, it concerns the project only indirectly, but it mostly relates to the investment company Electroatom, since it is directly connected to it. There we are undergoing a restructuring, and perhaps it would be helpful to give a brief historical overview here. How it all started. Yes, how it all started and why the current situation has developed as it has, and how we are getting out of it. And it all began on August 1st, 2024. The project started, the Electroatom project was launched. The national representatives arrived, just like that. No one had called for them, absolutely no one invited them, and no one was looking for them anywhere. They simply showed up unexpectedly.
Personal initiative?
Yes, personal initiative. As I found out later, the first was Robert from Cameroon. Yes, and he was the one who invited everyone else there afterwards. That's it. All the guys, the national representatives, those who came specifically, yes, came, the national representative, the national leader. Who is that? It's kind of a person responsible for their country. For example, in Côte d'Ivoire, there's one leader, in Togo, another leader, in Benin, a third leader, and so on, country by country. Each country has its own leader. People from Burkina Faso, other places, and so on. So all of those guys came over to us, to me personally. We then started talking and chatting with them. They said that all our partner networks are well developed. And for you, as a manager, since you're a tech person, yes, it's better for you not to get involved in this marketing. Yes, we know everything ourselves. We'll do everything ourselves. Just give us the roadmap and we'll move forward according to it. So to that, I replied, okay, fine. Furthermore, at that time, I was still working alone. There wasn't really a formal team formed for the project yet. There was only a translator working with me in terms of English and Hindi speakers specifically in England. And I also managed to discover another one for French. Then I found someone so that we could communicate with the guys, hold online meetings, and just get acquainted. And then, well, that is essentially the story of how the entire project first got off the ground. In the beginning, it really started off quite well. And for a long time, absolutely everything was going great. It was truly a wonderful and productive period up to a certain specific point, until the esteemed national representatives eventually hit a major glass ceiling that they simply could not break through. Let's put it this way. What does that mean? In our investment company, we have a marketing plan, meaning we use MLM marketing. But honestly, everyone uses it nowadays, even banks, any kind of company. So what does that mean? Invite a friend and get a bonus. In other words, invite a friend and get money.
A popular scheme to this day.
This popular scheme is widely utilized in nearly every industry now. Why is this scheme used? To significantly reduce expenditures on advertising. In other words, it's word of mouth, which is considerably more powerful and effective. We already thoroughly explored this topic with you on one of our previous podcasts, and it's much more effective and so on. And so we also have this kind of marketing plan. This initiative was meticulously developed to be incredibly effective in every possible way. Our dedicated national representatives and visionary leaders went above and beyond, inviting every single person they could possibly reach out to. To give you a better sense of the scale, we are talking about several tens of thousands of people gathered together. Can you even begin to imagine that? These national representatives are truly remarkable individuals who possess an extraordinary talent for sales. They truly understand the art of persuasion, and they execute it with exceptional skill and professionalism. Basically. Now, this situation has already developed. I was told from the very beginning, don't get involved in this area. They said, we'll handle everything up to marketing ourselves. But the time came when we hit a ceiling, the guys hit a ceiling and didn't know what to do next.
To put it in another way, they had no intention of using any particular marketing strategy, any tools that were intended for that purpose.
That were meant to be used. Yes, it's not that they used them. So, what really is the main point here? There is a promotion strategy, and there are tools that help you advance within that strategy. So the specific strategy of the company, the investment company, Latam, is a singular one. The only thing is the process of building out a highly developed and professional network, specifically a partner network, by utilizing the various strategies of multi-level marketing. But you must understand that in order to develop a partner network, it is essential that you really need to have at least some fundamental leadership and management skills.
Well, yes.
Yes, I'm talking about essential management skills. Unfortunately, most of our current national leaders, they simply don't possess those kinds of vital leadership qualities. Yes, it is true, they lack the fundamental qualities of effective managers. While they are often quite good at selling themselves and use various tools well to advance in their political strategy, they truly don't know how to manage complex systems. So, what exactly should they have done differently, specifically based on the details of this marketing plan? They needed to put together a specialized team. In principle, they already have teams, yes. But within those teams, they needed to select and appoint specific leaders. And these leaders needed to be assigned clear and distinct tasks in order to ensure that they would also be able to appoint other leaders under themselves and assign them tasks. And in this way,
the formation of a structure when you have subordinates and those
subordinates have their own
subordinates. And this results in distributed management of people. You are not managing the whole crowd by yourself, but rather you define
managing the tasks. You only communicate directly with the 10 specific leaders you appointed and assigned tasks to. This way, it's much easier for you to track these tasks effectively. So you don't have a million phone calls to handle, like the guys do right now. A million calls, a million proposals. That is, all the investors are calling them, all potential investors are calling them, only this one person, this individual, or maybe there is some kind of...
That's about 10,000 incoming calls, right?
Yes. Can you imagine the immense workload they have? All these national leaders, they have a very heavy workload. And so basically when they hit the ceiling, they say, that's it, we don't know what to do next. We don't have a strategy, but we don't realize that, in fact, there is a strategy. There's always just one. And it's exactly the same situation as before. Now the guys have fully understood that in order to grow and develop a partner network, it is absolutely essential to act as professional managers. And right now, at this very moment, we have a significant and growing number of various national representatives. They broke away, yes. Well, somehow they gradually started to fade away into the background. In other words, they've sort of distanced themselves from the project and aren't really participating in it. But the national representatives, everyone who stayed, are undergoing training. That is, I'm training them. Well, maybe that's putting it a bit strongly.
You're sharing your experience.
Yes, I'm sharing my experience. At the very least, I have management experience. And, well, I know the basics of management. Basically, I'm participating together with the guys. And we have essentially agreed that we have a sort of preliminary test assignment. Yes, but in reality, it is very significant for the company and requires advanced technology because the company previously utilized 3 different technologies. Right now, there is a deep automation of the power plant currently underway. In order to achieve this, we had to look for a specialized company that could handle the entire automation process. In other words, not just anyone can actually do it. Well, we have finally found a firm that will take care of this automation for us. This company sent us a contract. Right now, it's under review on our end. We'll sign this contract because we've basically already reached a verbal agreement with them, both regarding payment and deadlines. So we know all of that. All that's left is to formalize it in writing. Legally?
Formally?
Yes, to confirm it legally so that everything is correct and to sign this contract. So, for the full automation of the power plant, we need $110,000. That is approximately 10 million Russian rubles for the value of this entire company. This company will complete the automation for us within 6 months. And so in order to attract these investments of $110,000, in fact, this is hardly a significant financial sum for our esteemed national representatives. Even for those who remain in their roles, it would still not be much of a burden at all. Yes, if this were right at the very beginning of the process, but now they have a certain expectation. A kind of stupor, yes, and a significant lack of clear understanding about exactly what to do. So, we are taking this project to successfully attract new capital investments of $110,000. We have created a detailed roadmap, and now, together with the national representatives, as a comprehensive test assignment and evaluation for them as managers, meaning they are no longer attracting investments themselves, and they are no longer organizing and conducting various online or offline events themselves. Presentations, yes, meaning they are not gathering people themselves. I don't need to explain that. In general, they delegate all these functions. They delegate them to their leaders, whom they appoint. For this purpose, we have also established a more formal and structured organizational infrastructure in the back office, which means that under this new system, the national leader personally selects and appoints regional leaders, and these regional leaders are also granted their own specific sets of rights and administrative responsibilities by the national leader. Within their own personal account dashboard, they can see exactly how each person is performing. That is, they view the detailed statistics for each of their managers, and in this way they can easily track the specific tasks currently assigned to them. This is how we handle the test assignments. We convene in a meeting with the representatives and give them a task. We assign them a specific task. Their leader, up to 10 leaders, then monitors who is completing the task and how they are doing it. So, at this stage, this is the situation that we have established.
As I understand it, this test assignment is very closely linked to practice. So it's not just to check their knowledge, but specifically to put that knowledge into practice immediately and get some kind of result right away, achieving a measurable level of tangible effectiveness.
Yes, exactly. Why else can this assignment be used? Because there is a very specific and clearly defined time frame that we must follow. That is, within just 1 month, we need to successfully attract a total investment of $110,000. This is actually a highly achievable and realistic task for us to complete when we are building this strategic management model. As we discussed, a leader appoints leaders, and those leaders also appoint leaders, assign tasks, check them, and so on. In general, they fulfill all their duties and functions. So here we end up with a strict hierarchy. They understand who their supervisor is. Then the investors that they manage to attract, these investors also become co-owners of the venture. These co-owners already know exactly whom to introduce a new potential person to. That is, he himself may not be able to fully explain the details or properly convey the necessary information to the person he is inviting. Well, of course. But if I have a supervisor you can talk to, he will explain everything to you clearly and properly. Previously, for example, this wasn't the case. That is, investors couldn't explain things to other people in a qualified way. Of course, they did it to some extent and they did well, but they did it inefficiently. A supervisor can do it effectively.
Looking ahead in terms of further training, are there any additional tasks currently being planned? So, right now, as I understand it, the focus is on practicing delegation and assigning responsibility to distribute the workload among participants. Are there any additional specific tasks currently being planned that will also serve to practically reinforce and solidify the knowledge gained, while further enhancing one's professional qualifications as a manager?
Well, naturally, we will always be working in this specific area and only in this area. I mean real practical work, that is, a specific practical assignment directly related to the work of the company, the investment company Electroatom. And after we successfully complete this task, and after we attract the investments, we will then move further along the roadmap. And according to the roadmap, construction is already planned. That is to say, in the month of June, we are already supposed to begin the process of building object number 1. But unfortunately, due to the current situation with our national representatives, I am not entirely sure that we will actually be able to begin construction as planned. The task will be set to raise a certain amount of capital, not just collect it, but specifically attract investments for a very specific sum, and we will proceed in exactly the same way. Perhaps we will break this task down into much smaller stages. or even make it significantly more granular than before. As they say, you have to eat an elephant one bite at a time. Yes. So most likely, we'll deconstruct this complex task into small, highly manageable and specific subtasks as well. It might take a little longer this way. Or maybe it won't actually take longer. Timing.
Breaking it down into parts, on the contrary, will actually improve efficiency and
speed. I can see that the guys pick things up on the fly. They understand the process fundamentally, and they know how to sell effectively. And all they need to do is pass on their experience to these regional representatives, the regional leaders they officially designate, in regards to their sales performance. They really need to pass on their valuable experience to the team, and then they must just observe whether that knowledge is being applied correctly or incorrectly in the field. That is basically the core of the process. And if the guys are truly learning, absorbing all the right knowledge, and it is really sinking in deep, then I believe we will be able to complete our next major task much faster. If everything goes according to plan, then maybe in June we can already begin the actual construction work.
there is a feeling deep inside of me that tells me this is already becoming partially true in reality. It seems like a certain kind of business school, but not merely in a theoretical sense, not like they do in universities where they talk about some ready-made business model or an existing project. But here, people here not only deeply understand and grasp the technology, and already have a strong set of certain sales and communication skills for dealing with end consumers or clients they will engage with, but also directly, they gain knowledge in practice and apply it in practice, improving their qualifications and expertise in this field. And in the future, I think that in a constantly growing market with an ever-expanding list of developing technologies, this will be a huge advantage for those who are advancing in this field and acquiring new knowledge. They are already reaching a level that is definitely higher than their competitors and, let's say, their peers in the same field.
Yes. Moreover, they also receive referral bonuses. This is what we were talking about, right? MLM. This MLM marketing. And we specifically set aside and allocate more than 40% for this purpose, primarily for paying out referral bonuses. So with competent and highly effective management, this can be considered as a separate and profitable business of building your own structure, because you earn significantly within it. You earn almost 40% of all the funds that come in, which they themselves attract. And from these same funds, referral bonuses are paid out to them. So accordingly, that is an incredibly significant amount of financial capital. We actually have it right here. We also have a presentation on this topic. That is to say, we calculated 3 different development models. So there is a model where a person takes a very laid-back approach, invites someone else, and ends up with a certain amount. A person who takes it more seriously gets a more substantial amount. That's what happens. A dedicated individual who focuses solely on doing this and nothing else ends up with a truly substantial and significant amount of capital, which they can then use to establish their own professional physical offices, conveniently conduct online meetings, and effectively hold offline meetings as well. And then, if a motivated person eventually reaches the point where they open an office with their own referral money, with the money they have actually earned in this network, in their own network, then that physical office will truly work for them in the long run. In other words, they open it with a clear understanding. They know exactly why they need this office. This office grows organically for them. That is in them. A need arises, and that's why they open it. They don't just establish and maintain this office simply for the purpose of being able to say that it exists.
It's like buying a car just to look at it sitting in the garage versus actually driving and using the car so that it finally brings some kind of result.
Absolutely, that is correct. And it is exactly the same situation with events, these physical, in-person, offline events. That is to say, when the national representative organizes and holds these offline events using funds that he has collected himself, as a matter of fact, money and financial resources he has worked hard to earn through his own efforts, then this specific event, Noche, will also grow organically for him. So if he has decided to hold this event, it means he has people who want to come and hear about this technology, who want to invest in it. And then it makes sense for him to hold such a conference, such a presentation where he will talk about the technology and people will immediately register and invest right there. This is what I'm trying to convey to the guys.
So, based on the information that I have just heard from you, am I understanding correctly what L's specific role is there in this case? The project development option is about the process of passing on valuable knowledge, but not just passing it on, rather helping the representatives to apply it in practice and achieve concrete results.
Yes, absolutely right. That's exactly it.
Excellent. I am really pleased by the prospect that the project itself, its, so to speak, founders and ideological inspirers are not just promoting the idea, not just advancing the technology, but also helping people to delve into the scientific aspect in general, the overall landscape of the modern business environment, certain investment distribution technologies, digital media, and strategic marketing efforts. These are very broad topics, and if you try to figure them out on your own, each separately, it can take a significantly larger amount of your valuable time. But here, we have a specific object, a specific topic, a specific direction, very concrete and actionable options, solutions, and all of this comes together perfectly. It wraps, so to speak, one topic, one specific direction that brings significant financial results for clients. That's truly a great outcome.
Absolutely right. There may also be a factor here that, in a way, forces us to be involved in this. It's the fact that there are already thousands and thousands of investors, that is, people who we bought investment packages. And in these investment packages, there are shares of the enterprise. They became co-owners of this enterprise. And now we can't back out. Well, in other words, there's nowhere to go. As they say, Moscow is behind us, and that's it. We simply have no right to retreat. Otherwise, all the investors will be left with nothing. They will lose their money once and for all, irretrievably. Well now, why let it come to that when we can just step in and completely straighten out this entire situation?
Move forward? Yes, of course it is.
Even though it is a reality that some representatives have flatly refused to participate, and even some are actively campaigning for people not to contribute the funds, but they're sawing off the branch they're sitting on. In other words, in the end, they're going to bite off their own hand, because all the investors they're telling not to invest have already invested here. And they're telling them, don't keep investing there, invest in other projects instead.
Leave behind what you've already given and forfeit your entire investment.
Yes, in other words. But of course, that's not how they say it. In all likelihood, they will try to shift the blame for all of this onto someone else. They will blame the company, of course. They will blame me, and so on. But knowledgeable people who truly understand the situation, and serious investors who sit down and really think about what is going on, they will eventually realize what is actually happening. They will see that these people telling them not to invest are actually the very reason this entire situation is unfolding. That is to say, it leads to chronic underfunding and various other issues, and that is the fundamental problem that they are facing right now. It is important to acknowledge that there could be a situation where the project just doesn't work out as planned, although we do have our main strategic partner in the form of Saudi Arabia, where we can always turn to secure additional funding if needed. So that's another plus. Also, we've also received a substantial offer from a major investor based in India, but we're still considering it. So in any case, the project will definitely be carried out. Yes, it's just that the people who are investing their money in the project right now, yes, well, these aren't major investors. They're much smaller individual contributors and minor stakeholders. So unfortunately, they will receive, we have to state this fact, unfortunately, they will receive small dividends. Why? Because they will have few shares. And why is that? Because they're being asked not to invest.
Victor, thank you very much for dedicating so much time and attention to sharing your knowledge and giving us such a comprehensive inside look at the project. And for all the viewers who are already part of it, I truly believe they are developing a deeper sense of confidence as participants and gaining a stronger and more stable foundation to move forward. Thank you so much for everything.
Yes, and thank you, Alexander, for inviting me to the podcast. Dear friends, be sure to subscribe to all the official channels, follow the news, and don't forget to write your questions. We will answer them. Thank you so much for your attention. Goodbye.